No nonsense, no how here, and welcome to some rubbish. Tonight I came into the garage and the red switch was popped up on my waste oil furnace. So I want to show you the most common issue I have with this furnace. It's a 1992 Clean Burn CB2000. If you're not familiar with these, they'll burn pretty much anything. So I run used motor oil through it, and this jug gets screened here and gets pulled through this hose, screened again in this one. This is the oil pump, comes over, got a quick coupling. This is your oil pressure regulator, and then I also have, it uses air pressure too, so I have a little quiet air compressor running under the table. You can see it right there, that little guy, and that runs up to this hair dryer, air side, because it needs air too. Spark, air, whatever, makes flame, and you got a blower, makes heat. Okay, great. So let me show you what happens when I push the red switch in. The heat is on right now. It's like 20 degrees in here. Should be kicking on. Oh, I had already unplugged it, so here we go. All right, nothing. Now, it has 3 psi oil pressure and 22 psi of air pressure, but it's still not firing. If I crank up this oil pressure, it will fire. That's the air compressor kicking on. Should fire. There it goes. Boom. So what's happened is I have a restriction inside the line that I'm going to show you, which is causing me to need 12 psi just to get a normal flame in there. And if I drop it down to anything, like even it goes out at 10. So let me show you what the problem is now. This is a custom power lead that I added, so you can swing the burner open while it's running if you want. You got quick couplings on everything, so you can pop this whole thing off if you need. A little wing nut, whatever the case. Sorry about the poor quality of this video, guys. So the problem is this thing gets gunked up in a nutshell, and it has a block heater and a nozzle heater, but the block heater is the big problem because it has a big heating element in this aluminum block. This is a giant aluminum block with all these sensors on it and solenoids, and it causes the oil to get all slouged up. This is the huge ignition coil on this thing, transformer. And the second heater is the nozzle heater, but that's on the air side of things. So that's right here. It has a thermostat too. So yeah, what I did earlier, that's the reason I know this is the problem. I went ahead and pulled my nozzle out, and the nozzle is not clogged. It's fine. But it still needs all that pressure to run. So what I think, and the most common problem, is that this copper tube runs that nozzle, that little skimpy one, that always gets clogged up, or it gets clogged at the block because of the heater in there. So I'm going to pop those off and show you that. This time I'm going to go a little bit differently. I loosened up these 2 flatheads on the electrodes, slid those up out of the way, and on the compression fitting, pulled that tube off. I'm going to first check if that tube's clogged or if it's what's actually inside of here, because I'll show you this heater in a second too. But pulling this out, again, I had this out earlier, blew through it, and that's not clogged. You would think this is what gets clogged because it has this tiny little orifice in there. Sorry about the focus on that, but trust me, it's tiny. But yeah, this tube gets clogged, and also where it comes from the block. So let me see if this hose is clogged. All right, to wrap this up, since my phone is dying, this copper tube, I put a rubber hose on it, blew compressed air through it. It's not blocked. It has plenty of free flow. So I took the nipple off that it goes into. Again, that's a little slouged, but plenty of flow through that. But right here, right behind where that thread's in, that is where it gets blocked just like solid, if you can see that. Don't know how well you can see it, but it gets very clogged up. And so on the other side of that, let me turn this focus on. This is the block heater, and this an oil heater to preheat the oil. And look, so that gets all slouged up on it and on the end too. And that is that's the #1 cause for clogs and blockages in this thing, because it's sitting here all the time, even when you're not using the heat, and it's heating that oil up, and of course, so it's going to get all carboned up. And here is the nozzle. It's a very interesting looking nozzle. You actually thread this off, so you got to make sure that this O-ring's in good shape and sealing. And then inside of there, so that's what that looks like. No blockages. That's all the way through. But then this is. And this is like a superficial nozzle. This is not the nozzle at all. This is the restricted part, and look how clean that is. So it's actually, this slides right in here. And it's pretty neat because air goes by on these sides, and then like it has a little turbo nozzle on it. It spins the air up, and then oil shoots through that center jet. So very, very interesting nozzle on these, and it's cool that it's rebuildable, unlike heating oil one has the screen on the back. I mean, you would just never be able to clean that out. Yeah, I think that explains it all for you. So the fix is cleaning all this off and using pipe cleaners to get in there, get all that sludge out. And you got to do this probably once every year and a half, 2 years. I'll have this problem where it misfires, and then you got to crank the pressure up because that just gets blocked off in there. It's just part owning a Clean Burn, I guess, one of these older ones. To help try to avoid this happening, I plugged in one of these Digitins a while back, and I did another video on these darn things. But basically, this turns the whole system off at 55 degrees and then triggers it on at 39. So once the spring comes and it gets a little bit warmer out, it takes the power away from that whole heating, well, the whole thing really, and that way it's not unnecessarily using the heating element to keep that oil hot. Because when this thing cools down, like if you just shut it off every time you're not using it, it takes a good probably 10 minutes to get warmed back up to where it can fire, because it has a thermostat. It needs to get this block a certain temperature before it will even try to fire. This is what the heating element should look like. Make sure you put thread seal on those threads too. Got it all cleaned up. I'm gonna slap it together now. Side note, check out these Mikuni flat side 36mm. Oh yeah, got these off a KZ750 I was flipping. Hopefully put them on my KZ1000 when I get some time. All back together. Let's fire it up. Should work good. Oh. Hit that, crank up the oil pressure until we get fire. Boom, there you go. See, now we're only at 3 PSI. Put it at like 4 PSI. And we got a nice flame making good heat. So cool, we fixed that restriction in there, and that is, again, said it 20 times, but the most common problem I have with this thing. So, all right, drop it a thumbs up if it helped you out. Consider checking out the channel or whatever. I should probably put this wing nut on here. Forgot to put that on. And yeah, I hope you guys have a nice night. This has been a no nonsense, no hell rubbish video.